Marcus Taylor's mornings were usually ordinary. As a garbage collector, the rhythm of his early shifts brought a strange solace. The hum of his truck, the predictable bins awaiting collection, and the occasional friendly waves from neighbors made up the landscape of his routine. However, this Tuesday morning had something else in store, a moment that would change lives forever. The Brightwood neighborhood was pristine. The clean sidewalks and neatly trimmed lawns seemed a world away from chaos. As Marcus maneuvered his truck alone, delayed by his partner's sudden absence, he took note of a familiar sight: Rachel Harper and her little girl, Lucy. Normally, Rachel greeted Marcus warmly, her daughter occasionally running to wave goodbye. Today, though, was different. Rachel's nod was curt, her eyes distant. Lucy's head remained bowed, avoiding any contact. Something gnawed at Marcus, a subtle unease. As Marcus continued his route, his gaze lingered on the Harper's trash bin. It was heavier than usual. Its contents, partially visible, betrayed an odd secret. Brand new children's clothes, untouched school supplies, and toys sat amongst the discarded waste. Marcus's instincts flared. Why throw away such valuable items? A voice startled Marcus from his thoughts. "Excuse me, mister." He turned to see a figure he recognized immediately. The man wore his trademark kindness like a second skin. Keanu Reeves, dressed inconspicuously in a black jacket, approached with an earnest expression. "I saw you hesitate," Keanu said softly. "Something's on your mind." Marcus nodded, explaining the oddity. "I don't know why, but it feels wrong." Keanu's face grew serious. "Sometimes, instincts are all we have. Let's check on them." A knock at the door. Together, Marcus and Keanu approached Rachel's home, Marcus holding the salvaged bag. After several knocks, Rachel opened the door, her face pale, her demeanor guarded. Marcus explained their concern, holding up the bag. Rachel's reaction was instant, fear flashed across her face, and she hurriedly dismissed them. "Thank you, but we don't need help," she said sharply, her trembling hands betraying her words. Before Marcus could probe further, a loud crash sounded inside. Rachel's body tensed as she slammed the door shut. Keanu's sharp eyes narrowed. "There's more to this than she's letting on." As Marcus debated calling the authorities, a small voice pierced the tension. Lucy emerged from behind a parked car, tears streaming down her face. She ran straight to Marcus and Keanu, clutching at their arms. "Help my mommy," she sobbed, pointing toward the house. "Please, don't let him hurt her anymore." Keanu crouched, his gentle tone breaking through her fear. "Who's hurting your mom, Lucy?" "My dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He's a bad man." The escape plan. Keanu's mind raced. He gently took Lucy's hand. "Marcus, we can't leave this alone. But we need to be smart." Marcus agreed, calling the police as Keanu comforted Lucy. Minutes later, sirens echoed down the street, flashing lights filling the once quiet neighborhood. Officers surrounded the house, their presence a stark contrast to the tranquility Brightwood was known for. Rachel and her husband, Dennis, emerged from the home during the commotion. Dennis, furious, yelled accusations at both Marcus and Keanu. His threats were venomous, but Keanu stood firm, his calming presence steadying both Rachel and Lucy. "It's over," Keanu said to Dennis, his voice low but resolute. "Let them go." Dennis lunged forward, but officers restrained him. Rachel, bruised and shaking, collapsed into Marcus's arms as Lucy clung to Keanu. Keanu looked at Marcus, determination hardening his features. "This isn't just a rescue. It's the start of something bigger." Part 2, The Harpers' Silent Struggle. The aftermath of a nightmare. The Brightwood cul-de-sac, usually a scene of calm suburban life, was transformed into a hub of flashing lights, uniformed officers, and concerned neighbors peering from behind curtains. Rachel sat on the porch of her house, cradling Lucy, while Keanu Reeves and Marcus Taylor stood nearby, trying to steady their nerves. Dennis Harper, now handcuffed and surrounded by police, was being loaded into the back of a patrol car. His protests and threats were a sharp contrast to the quiet resolve in Keanu's demeanor. Detective Sarah Lawson, a kind but firm officer, approached Rachel gently. "Mrs. Harper, I know this is difficult, but we need to understand what happened." Rachel hesitated, her gaze dropping to her bruised hands. Keanu stepped forward, crouching to meet Rachel's eyes. His voice was calm and encouraging. "It's okay, Rachel. You're safe now. Whatever you share can only help protect you and Lucy." Taking a deep breath, Rachel began to recount her story. Her words came haltingly at first, but Keanu's presence seemed to give her strength. "A history of control. We were married for 8 years, Rachel began. In the beginning, Dennis was charming and ambitious. I thought I'd found someone who'd protect me." Her voice wavered, and she clutched Lucy tighter. But as his business grew, so did his temper. He started drinking more, and everything became about control, where I went, who I spoke to. He isolated me. Rachel's voice dropped as she recounted the moment things turned violent. 3 years ago, he hit me for the first time. Lucy was in the other room. I thought, maybe it was a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Keanu's hand tightened into a fist, his jaw clenching as he listened. "And the restraining order?" he asked gently. Rachel nodded. "I filed for divorce after that. The court granted me custody of Lucy and issued a restraining order. But it didn't stop him. He'd show up drunk, banging on the doors, threatening us. I tried to protect Lucy, but she trailed off, her voice cracking. Lucy, clinging to her mother, whispered, 'He scares me, Mom. I don't want him to come back.'" Detective Lawson's pen moved quickly, documenting every detail. She assured Rachel that Dennis would be facing multiple charges: domestic violence, child endangerment, and violating the restraining order. "You don't need to worry. He won't come near you again." A helping hand. As Rachel finished her statement, Marcus and Keanu exchanged glances. The morning had turned their lives upside down, but they both knew they couldn't walk away now. Keanu crouched again, his voice steady. "Rachel, what's your plan now? Do you have somewhere safe to go?" Rachel shook her head. "My mother's house is small, and I don't want to impose. I don't know." Keanu looked thoughtful, his resolve hardening. "You don't need to decide right now. But let me help you figure something out." Marcus, inspired by Keanu's calm leadership, spoke up. "And I'll make sure your trash is the least of your worries for a while," he said with a small, reassuring smile. Keanu's phone buzzed in his pocket. After glancing at the screen, he looked back at Rachel. "Do you trust me?" Rachel hesitated, then nodded. "I don't have much choice. A safe haven." Within hours, Keanu had arranged for Rachel and Lucy to stay at a local women's shelter known for helping survivors of domestic violence rebuild their lives. He personally drove them there in his car, with Marcus following in his truck. The shelter director, a woman named Anita, welcomed them with open arms. "You're in good hands here," Keanu assured Rachel as Anita guided them to a private room. Lucy hugged Keanu tightly before she followed her mom. "Thank you," she whispered, her small voice filled with gratitude. After ensuring they were settled, Keanu and Marcus stepped outside. Marcus exhaled deeply. "You know, I thought I was just going to pick up trash today. Never expected to be part of something like this." Keanu smiled faintly. "Life has a way of throwing curveballs. The important thing is what we do when they come. A plan for the future." Back in his car, Keanu placed a call to his assistant. "I want to set up a fund," he said, his voice decisive. "Cover Rachel's legal fees, counseling, and whatever Lucy might need. And reach out to local organizations. I want to support shelters like this one long term. Marcus, listening from the passenger seat, shook his head in amazement. You really are something else, Keanu. Keanu chuckled softly. It's not about being something else. It's about doing what's right when you have the chance. As the car pulled away from the shelter, Keanu glanced at Marcus. You're part of this now, Marcus. Ready to see it through? Marcus nodded, a smile spreading across his face. Let's do it. A ripple of change. A week after Dennis Harper's arrest, Brightwood's calm had returned, but its residents buzzed with the story of how a garbage collector and a Hollywood star joined forces to save a mother and her daughter. Marcus Taylor became something of a local hero, while Keanu Reeves' kindness reminded everyone that even the most recognizable faces could make an unexpected impact. At the women's shelter, Rachel and Lucy were slowly rebuilding their lives. Counseling sessions had helped Rachel process years of fear and control. Lucy, with her sharp eyes and bright imagination, had taken to sketching her emotions, a skill nurtured by a set of art supplies Keanu had sent over. Keanu visited often, his presence bringing comfort and encouragement. During one visit, he brought Marcus along. Together, they sat in the shelter's modest courtyard, listening as Lucy eagerly showed them her latest drawings. This one's me and Mommy, Lucy explained, holding up a crayon drawing of two figures holding hands. And this one's Mr. Keanu and Mr. Marcus saving us. Marcus chuckled, his rough hands dwarfing the small cup of tea Rachel had made for him. You're giving me too much credit, kid. It's Keanu who made the magic happen. Keanu shook his head, smiling. It's a team effort. And Lucy, don't forget, you're the bravest one here. A secret revealed. As life began to stabilize for Rachel and Lucy, unexpected news arrived. A detective from the local precinct contacted Marcus. We've uncovered something during Dennis Harper's investigation, she said. It might explain some of his behavior. Curiosity piqued, Marcus met with the detective, who revealed that Dennis had been drowning in debt, his lavish lifestyle built on a house of cards. Unable to face failure, he'd turned to control and manipulation to keep up appearances. But it doesn't excuse his actions, the detective said firmly. We'll make sure he's held accountable. Marcus shared the news with Keanu, who nodded thoughtfully. It's tragic how people can spiral when they're afraid of losing everything, he said. But that doesn't mean others should suffer. Keanu reached out to his network, working to ensure that Rachel and Lucy wouldn't be financially tied to Dennis's troubles. His efforts helped Rachel secure legal assistance to finalize the divorce and sever any remaining ties to Dennis's toxic influence. A community united. Keanu's involvement didn't stop there. He organized a fundraiser to support the shelter and raise awareness about domestic violence. Hosted at a local community center, the event featured performances by local artists, speeches from survivors, and a surprise appearance by Keanu himself. Marcus, hesitant to be in the spotlight, eventually agreed to speak. Standing on the small stage, he looked out at the crowd. I'm just a garbage man, he began, his voice steady but humble. But that day, I saw something that didn't sit right. I couldn't ignore it. And I'm grateful to have been part of something bigger. The applause was thunderous, and Marcus felt a swell of pride he hadn't experienced before. Rachel also took the stage, her voice shaking but resolute. I didn't think anyone would believe me, she said, tears glistening in her eyes. But then, two strangers did. And because of them, my daughter and I have hope again. The event raised thousands for the shelter, ensuring more families could find safety and support. A bright future. Months later, Rachel and Lucy moved into a small, cozy apartment not far from Lucy's new school. Marcus and Keanu helped them settle in, hauling boxes and assembling furniture. Lucy, thrilled with her new room, immediately began decorating it with her drawings. Rachel, watching them work, felt a lump in her throat. She approached Keanu as he fixed a stubborn bolt on a bed frame. I don't know how to thank you, she said softly. Keanu straightened, brushing sawdust from his hands. You don't have to, Rachel. Just focus on building the life you and Lucy deserve. As Marcus handed Lucy a stuffed animal he'd found in the trash that first day, she beamed up at him. I'm going to keep this forever, she declared. Closing the chapter. As Keanu and Marcus prepared to leave, Rachel walked them to the door. You've both given us so much, she said. But more than anything, you gave us hope. Marcus scratched the back of his neck, grinning shyly. It wasn't much. Just doing what felt right. Keanu placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. You did more than that. You inspired a community. Driving away, Marcus glanced at Keanu. You know, he said, this whole thing started because I was late to my route. Maybe being off schedule isn't always so bad. Keanu laughed. Life's funny like that. Sometimes, the detours take us exactly where we're meant to go. As the truck rolled down the road, the sunset painted the sky in hues of gold and orange, a fitting backdrop for a story of courage, kindness, and new beginnings. The end.